Welcome. I am Dr. Michelle Dillon, and I am here to talk about the necessity of self-care. I am here with Misty Lawrence. She is a founder and therapist at Stillwater's Christian Counseling. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. Hi, Misty. How are you today?
Hey, Dr. Michelle, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's get started. So with self-care, as a mom of three, I feel like this is something that everybody struggles with. If you're a mom, if you're not a mom, would you agree, Misty?
Absolutely.
Yes. So I find with patients over the years, those that don't have a self-care regimen really struggle with improving their health overall. So I find if they can learn it at any time, it really helps their body heal. So I wanted to recruit Misty here because she's a very knowledgeable person on this topic, to help us learn more about some easy ways or tools or thoughts that we can have around self-care to help bring it into our lives more so that we can improve our health and improve our mental, physical, emotional, spiritual side of things, right? So Misty, share with me a little bit of your experience and what you find to be helpful.
Absolutely. I am a huge fan of this topic, and I am excited to be here and share about it with you guys. People do not come to me because they want to talk about self-care. However, I would say that probably every one of my clients has had that conversation with me because it's essential. When people come into my office, they have a goal, they have a plan. I want to help them reach that goal. And so one of the very first things that I'm going to ask is, what does your self-care look like? And there's a reason, because what they're doing is they're coming in and they're asking to make changes, and those changes are going to take energy. And typically we don't have a lot of extra energy lying around. And so we have to figure out where the new energy is going to come from. It's kind of like if I said, all right, so I'm going to have you drive to California, but you're not allowed to stop for gas. It
Yeah,
feels
that'd be
very
brutal
discouraging.
for
So
sure.
yeah, self-care is huge. And so that's a big part of our conversation is I want you to be successful. And so how can we get self-care into your regular routine in your life so you can see those results?
Right. And then what would you say, I mean, as everybody can see the definition of self-care, the intentional act of serving one's mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual needs. What else do you have any examples of patients that you've seen or in your experience, like tools to cope?
Yeah, we have to understand what self-care is. So self-care is not something that is necessarily productive or a discipline. Self-care is something that we look forward to. It's something that we enjoy while we're doing it. And when we're finished, we feel refreshed or renewed, or even to the tiniest degree, a little bit more energized. It's not like taking 15 minutes of self-care is going to make up for not having a full 8 hours of sleep, but it is a necessity about how we are caring for ourselves. So I think understanding its purpose is important, and then defining self-care is unique to everyone. For a husband, running may be something he really looks forward to. He feels like he gets all of his energy out and his stress out, and it just revitalizes him. However, for his wife, that may be a discipline where she has to really make herself tie those shoes and get out there. And so the wife, maybe self-care is taking a bath or spending some time on a walk in nature or talking with a friend. So everybody has to figure out what fills them up and what makes them feel rejuvenated in those senses.
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of people will say, well, I go to the gym or I do XYZ, but it may not necessarily, going to the gym doesn't per se put a charge back into them. They just feel like the need to have to do that. So I think it's important to reevaluate what we do. And yes, this may be good for our health, but is it rebooting us, recharging us? Is a good point. I like that.
And I think it's important to remember too, we live in such a productivity driven culture that it's very easy to say, self-care has no value. Self-care is not productive.
Mm.
Self-care is extremely productive in another sense. when we are well, we're the best versions of ourselves, then we are able to give well and we are able to serve well and all of those other places that we actually have to mark things off of our to-do lists.
Mm.
So often people say, I will practice self-care when I have time or once I get all of these things done. But the list never ends. And so what ends up happening is self-care gets pushed aside and we're so close to burnout or we're so close to discouragement because we have tried to start a healthy eating plan or we wanted to make this other goal happen, but we don't have the energy for it. So we really have to plan self-care and it needs to be consistent.
I think that's such a good point because you bring up kind of like the mom guilt. Like I struggled with that when my kids were younger. I didn't want to take time out because I had worked, and then I didn't want to take more time to take care of myself because then it's taking away from time with them. But
Right.
it's such a good point because I find with my patients when I see them in their health needs, those that aren't taking time for themselves, they want to reward themselves with like emotional eating. So they kind of get it in another way. But those that maybe take time to do what they really love to recharge, then they have less of a tendency for emotional eating, as an example. So I think
Yeah.
it makes such a difference.
And I think quality versus quantity is really important because
Mm,
we can be with our kids all day long, but if we didn't have quality interaction with them and we didn't have that great emotional connection and support because we didn't have it to give, then have we really given them what we want them to remember?
hmm And one thing that I read or somebody told me is and then it's true to me because growing up I never saw my mom take the time to do anything for herself. Maybe get her nails done a couple times.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're doing it yourself, then your kids do see that you're doing it, and you're what's the word? You're modeling that for them so that they do it when they have kids and they're a mom themselves or they're older.
Yeah, well, and self-soothing is a big part of this. Uh, in a healthy environment, we should learn as children how to calm and regulate our emotions, how to
Mhm.
self-soothe. And that means that we are capable of being alone. We are capable of entertaining ourselves. We are capable of calming ourselves. And a lot of us don't know how to do that as adults. And if we don't know how to do it as adults, we can't model it to our kids. And so this
Wow.
is something that I tell my parents often is like, you're not just doing this for you, you're doing this because your kids need you to do this because they need to know how to do it as well. Like this is
Mm.
generational change. You are stepping out of an unhealthy, crazy cycle, of always being tired and never feeling like you have anything left to give.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what kind of tools would you say are helpful, Misty, when it comes, how can we do better with this?
Yeah, so I have created a really simple tool and I want to share it with you guys today. This came out of me having this conversation over and over again and recognizing that I needed a visual. And so Dr. Michelle has just popped up on the screen there what I call energy tanks. So we oftentimes think of our energy tank as being one single
Ah,
tank. And when it's
sorry.
perfect.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
great. When it's gone, it's gone. But the truth of the matter is, and I know it's a little hard to read at the bottom, but I've divided this into 4 separate tanks. So we have emotional energy tank, a mental energy tank, physical energy tank, and a spiritual energy tank. And if you'll see at the middle, there's a 50%, and at the very top line, there's 100%. So what I'd like to do today is have you guys walk through this exercise. I think that there is a link that you can actually access this. Is that correct, Dr. Michelle?
Yeah, I'll put it up once I post this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to pause the video for a minute and go ahead and print that off or pull it up on your screen, I'd love for you to have that because you're going to be able to look back on this. So what you'll do is take a minute and ask yourself, if I'm being really honest as I sit here today, how much emotional energy do I have? Am I at 50%? Do I feel like I'm at 100%? So this is if a friend would call you and needed your emotional support because they were in crisis, how much emotional energy do you feel like you could bring to that phone call? And so be honest about that. So you'll draw a line. And I know
So
you may not be able to see me
I have
here.
I have a little pen here, so I could
Oh, you do
say,
have a draw? Okay, great. So draw your line where you think it's going to be straight across,
so
wherever
this
you.
would be, what is the dotted line?
So the dotted line is kind of our hypothetical goal. So it's approximately 75%. We can't maintain 100% energy at all times, right? That's unrealistic.
Sorry, that was bad. Okay.
So what we would really love to do is to be able to maintain around 75%. Most of us are not there. Like, let's just be honest. Most of us do not maintain 75% all the time.
Right.
So I can also show it on my paper if that's easier, Michelle.
I think this is okay. 75. All right, so
Okay,
let's
there you go.
say I would be at, after schooling my kids lately, I don't know, I'd probably be right underneath it. So I'd probably
Okay.
just draw this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's great. So you've got 70%, we'll say. So now you're going to move on to mental energy. And this would be if you had to, like, right now, take the ACT or the SAT. How much mental energy do you have to sit down and take that test? Do
So
you
I
feel
would say 50.
100%? Okay,
No.
so you're down at 50%. So then physical energy. If I were to say to you, I want you to go walk, run, whatever your physical level of activity is, a 5K right now. Like, I want you to strap your shoes on and go. Where is your physical energy?
See, I get my stress out from running,
Yeah,
so
so yours might be higher.
mine is like really high.
Yeah, and especially if you're anxious and you're amped up, you might feel like, oh my gosh, I have all this pent up emotion or the physical energy. And then spiritual energy really has to do with this sense of connection to your higher power. For me, that's God. Have I spent time with God? Do I feel filled by Him, connected by Him, to the community? Uh, and maybe today I haven't had time for that, and so it's a little bit lower. Or maybe I really have spent time in that space today and I feel filled by it. So just be honest about where you are.
Mm, I haven't had much time today, so I just do it lower here.
Okay.
So under 50. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the next thing that I'll have you do is I'll have you think about each of those categories. Go to that very top line and you're going to start a list right under that line at 100. So when you are depleted emotionally, what fills you back up? What replenishes you?
Hmm.
So it
Okay.
might be things like talking with a friend. It might
If
be
I did type it.
journaling.
Ah, here. Like so.
Ooh, look at you.
Yeah, that's good.
It might
Calling.
be taking a bath. Um, this is going to be, again, unique to everyone. It could be just being quiet. It could be sleep. So you'll do that. You'll fill your column there with all your options, ways that you can fill yourself back up.
Hmm.
And when you're done with that one, you'll move on to the mental column. And again, you may have some that overlap. Sleep may go in there.
Hmm.
Um, walking, exercising may go in there if that helps you mentally.
It's
It could be,
playing my ukulele.
yes, playing my ukulele. If you have a favorite TV show that you look forward to that's lighthearted and funny, like that counts. However, there's a little caveat about TV. TV can be distracting as well. And so if we do
Hmm.
something that's distracting when it's completed, we do not feel replenished or filled. We feel the
Hmm.
same way we did before we started the depleting activity. It's kind of like
That's
a
so
distraction.
true.
Okay.
That's
So
a good.
if have a favorite show you look forward to, then that can count as self-care. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And so then you'll move into physical. And for me, I'm not a huge cardio buff, so it's going to be yoga. It's going to be a gentle walk. It's going to be stretching. But for some people, it's heavy forms of cardio, or it's sleep because they don't have the energy. This one's very different depending on your style.
And the key probably, I would say, would be to try to aim for those that are health promoting instead of kind of like drinking whiskey or eating
Right.
ice cream or, yeah,
Yes, we want to be replenishing our bodies. Absolutely.
maybe boxing or.
Yes, absolutely. So, and
etc.
think about being physically depleted too. So, like a bath may even fit in this category because your body is achy or tired. And
Massage.
then I know that massage is a good one. I could put that in all the categories, I
Yeah,
think.
right. Me too. Okay.
And then for spiritual, just like all the others, this is different for every person. Some people connect um, with God through nature, through music, community, scripture, prayer, journaling. There's so many different ways. So figuring out what is the way or ways, multiple ways, that fill you up and give you that energy. And if you are a very spiritual person, oftentimes the higher your spiritual energy is, the higher your other energies will be as well,
Hmm.
because
That's
it
cool.
feeds those.
That's really neat.
So this is a tool that I use. A lot of moms use this. And I had a really awesome client once tell me, oh, Misty, you know what I did? I started drawing this image at the top of my day planner every week. And so when
Oh.
somebody asks me on Monday if I want to to lunch on Thursday, I can ask myself, how much energy do I think I'll have by Thursday? And is that a good decision for me?
Hmm.
So you can even use it
Yeah.
thinking ahead. Not that we can predict everything, but if you have 3 really long days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, like Thursday may need to be a rest day. And
Hmm.
then what you can do is look at your little chart and say, ooh, my numbers are really low. I need to get up to that dotted line. Let me choose something that's in my list to bring that number higher.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it's almost like budgeting your energy.
Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it.
Wonderful. Well, that's very helpful. That's really helpful. I like
Yeah.
how it gives you a visual and then it gives you something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it can be used over and over again. It's just a good check-in. Ultimately, we want to be able to do this in real time. We want to be able to say, where am I right now? What am I feeling? What do I need? And how can I help myself get that? If I can't do it right now, can I promise it to myself for later?
And what do you suggest for people that may write this down or may see this, but then they have a hard time implementing it?
Yeah, and so that's something that I actually work with folks. So some accountability can be really helpful, but then also learning how to have kindness and graciousness towards yourself, because oftentimes we are very good caregivers, but we do not give care to ourselves. And
Hmm.
so learning how to love and appreciate yourself and give graciously is oftentimes some personal healing work that needs to take place. If you struggle with this, I would encourage you to reach out for support. And it might be talking to a friend that has a similar struggle and you can be accountability for each other. But oftentimes there's deeper things going on there. And so addressing those, because you do deserve to be able to feel cared for and loved and taken care of.
Hmm. So if somebody was interested in finding somebody, um, do you have what services would you recommend? And how do they get a hold of you? And what would you?
Sure. So my physical office is in Cornelius, but I am offering telehealth services as well. And so I would welcome anybody who's interested in having more of this conversation to just reach out. So you can visit my website. It's stillwatersnc.com. Again, that is stillwatersnc.com. Uh,
Yeah.
this is a fun page. I'm enjoying it. You
Oh,
can
there you
message
go.
me. There you go. There's the website. You can message me through my website. I offer a free consultation. I'm also happy to email you back if that feels more comfortable. If you would like to be in person, there are lots of other therapists that can help in this area as well. And so I would encourage you to do some research and figure out what your goals are. Start seeing if there aren't therapists who are specializing in those areas and ask for a consult call. Have that connection before your first appointment just to get a sense of if
Hmm.
that person's a fit or not. I tell all my potential clients, like, hey, my job is to help you get where you need to go. And if that's with me, that's great. And if it's not with me, that's totally fine. And I give you permission to let me know. So I'll tell people that even in their first session, and I'll check in at the end and say, does this feel like a fit? So I just want everybody to hear, you don't have to stay with a therapist or any other medical professional that doesn't feel like a fit for you. Give yourself permission to find the right person.
That's a good point, Misty. And if they're not in Cornelius, do you see people virtually?
I do, yes. So I am seeing people virtually. This is my home office. Welcome. So if you meet with me virtually, this is where I'll be. But I'm in Cornelius on Mondays and Wednesdays right now, and then I'm in my home
Okay.
office on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Well, fabulous. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And for any of you that would like the recording, we'll have that on our on the Charlotte Natural Wellness website. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.